Hello. So in this video, we're going to continue with our Space Invaders tutorial. So we have the aliens are randomly dropping bombs. So now we want to do collision between the bombs and the player. So that maybe the player would lose health points. And that could maybe cause a game over condition. So we want to check for collision between those two things. So what we want to do is write a function to handle that collision. So just like we have function laser versus alien, we want to do a function for bomb singular versus player singular. And as the parameter, we are going to know which bomb we're talking about because there's a bunch of them. We don't actually have to specify player though because there's only one of them. Suppose I could rename it and do all that, but I'll just leave it in the use the global scope instead and actually say player. All right, so it's going to look a lot like laser versus alien. You want to say if condition, and then my if statement here is also going to use that rect versus rect function there. So I'm going to call rect versus rect, which takes in two things, takes in two shapes. So one is going to be the bomb, and then the other is going to be player. And so when I pass the bomb and then the player down to here, B kind of is renamed rec1, and then player is renamed rec2. So then they'll figure out whether they're touching or not. So in the case that they are, then player.hp will reduce. And the bomb should be done with. So we'll also do b.active equals false, kind of like we did with the laser and the alien. Now, the active property of bomb doesn't actually exist yet. I'm just kind of pretending that that's the case. If there is nothing magical about me saying .active, I'm just making up a variable name here, attribute name. HP, player.hp, that does exist. So this will cause it to decrease. But this b.active is pretty important because if I don't eventually take it out, then it will keep pulling HP off of the player. And I don't want it to do that the entire time it's falling through. So one thing is I need to call this function, bomb versus player. Now there's a bunch of bombs, so I need to be inside of some kind of a for loop here. So I go up to function draw. I already have my bombs for loop, and this is where I want to be. I want to do bomb versus player, parentheses, bombs, brackets I, because there's a bunch of them, so then I specify which one. And I don't need to do a double for loop here, like I did with laser versus alien, because there's only one player. So I only needed to go through each of the bombs to check that. So now it's being called, and I should lose HP then at some point. And the only issue is that the bombs don't actually disappear. So what I want to do then is, since I'm already in this function right here, I'm going to use my aliens equals aliens dot filter, lasers equals lasers dot filter. Use that same idea and say bombs equals bombs dot filter, and filter such that I only include bomb such that bomb dot active, and I'm writing B as the parameter, such that B dot active is true. I don't need to say is true just because this is either true or false. I'm pretending because again I haven't actually made this property yet, but this should be able to take it out of the array then. All right, which just to kind of show what's happening here, I don't think I'll ever get any because it's filtering in the ones that are still active. So they show up for just a blip, but none of them actually have this active property. So that comes down to drop bomb dot active equals So when you drop a bomb, then you need to set that property to true. That way we'll actually remember them. All right, but you can see when they hit the player, they do disappear. And if I were watching the HP, then you can see that the HP number is decreasing.